Hey, Greg here. This week there was a March 2026 Affinity update which included some pretty cool stuff. So there's a new light UI mode. You now have the ability to convert pixel selections directly into vector curves, something that just wasn't possible before and something that I think is going to be a big win for Affinity users. Also, now there are live tone blend groups, which on the fly will attempt to make anything within the group blend more naturally with the background environment. So we'll take a look at all of that, plus some more features that were part of this release. So let's jump right in and see what's new in Affinity. Let's start with a simple one, but one I know a lot of people are going to enjoy, and that's that there is now a light mode here in Affinity. So you usually have this dark background here, but like a lot of programs, sometimes you might want to change that up a little bit. So now you can come up here under Edit and go to Settings. You can also use the Control key plus the comma on Windows, or on a Mac that would be the Command key plus comma. It's going to bring up the settings menu, and then if you just go down under the user interface tab here on the left, now you'll notice you have this light and dark button. So by default it starts in dark, but you can switch over to light mode. So if you prefer this, if you like working in this space, you can work in this light mode. If you prefer this dark mode, then work in this dark mode. So that's a nice option. Now there are a few other things under here that are updated as well. You have this accent color drop down, and this comes into play, this accent color, when you have like your layer selected over here. So if I had a layer highlighted, then we see that accent color here. So by default, it's showing up as this blue color, but you can now come on here under here and set it to system or to manual. Now, if you set it to system, then it's actually going to be based on your operating systems, whether that's Windows and Mac, and where you select sort of that accent color within those settings. So I'll show you where that comes in on Windows. So let me come up here and just make this a little smaller just so I can see to my desktop behind Affinity here. So if I right click and you come under Personalize, this is on Windows, but on Mac, you'd have something similar to this, where you come in here and then you can do things like update your background color, but on Windows, you would go under this colors menu. And then if you scroll down, this color here, this is the color that actually is going to affect this highlight color and become this highlight color, this accent color, if we come down here in Affinity and we change this from the default to system. So when we do that, we see it made it that yellow. Let me just bring that back up so we can see that menu just again, because I lost it for a second, but there it is right here. If we go into colors, and we can see it's using this color right here. So I've noticed when I change this here, it's really slow to update. Like Affinity almost freezes for a second and becomes hung up. So that's maybe a reason to not use this. And I also just think it's not very intuitive for the color of this to be coming from outside of Affinity. So you can use this option if you want, but I don't really see why you would, because if you don't like the default option here, which for me is just fine, but if you don't like this default option, you have this manual option right here, and then you can come in here and you can really choose any color you want, anything at all. So I would just recommend leave it as the default, or just come choose a custom color, pick whatever color you want. So you have that system option, but that's not one I'm going to use. So I'll just set it back to default. Now you also have some new home screen options under here. So if I come to home screen here, we can show and hide different things on the home screen. So let me just bring up the home screen so we can see what I'm talking about, and I'll go ahead and maximize this out again, but then I'll also hit this home screen button here just so we can see the home screen. And this is the home screen. Let me just bring it over so you can see what I'm talking about, and I'll make it a little smaller here just so we can see this, and also the settings menu here. But so on the home screen, we can see right now that we have templates, we have favorites, we have presets, and so we have all these different options here, recent documents. But so I can see all these right here over in this, but if I wanted to turn something off, I could turn off recent documents. We see it goes away. Turn it back on, it comes back. Maybe I don't want the favorites on here or the presets, so I could turn anything I want off. And then you can also drag these and reorder it. So if you want to see recent documents up top and they're not up top, you can just take it and drag it and drop it, and it'll reorder things here. So just a little bit more control in here under the home menu. So those are new things under here, but there's lots of cool stuff you can do under this settings menu. You can go in and set your own custom keyboard shortcuts. So if you come in here on the shortcuts, you have different categories and you can set custom shortcuts. So there are lots of helpful things beyond these new things here in Affinity that some people don't pay attention to. You might want to poke around here just a little bit and see what might be helpful. So another simple UI update, there are now more options if you just right click up on a tab here in your user interface. So some of these options here, the ability to show color format right on here, the ability to show document size. So you can change the info that shows up here in the tab. And you also have a couple other options up here like float, the ability just to float this tab. Now you could float a tab before, but now you can just do it by right clicking directly on the tab itself, float and dock that tab. Also have the ability to come on here and show where it is in File Explorer. So right there, it's going to show you exactly where that is if you've forgotten. So just some more simple things here if you right click on a tab. So check those out and see if any of those are helpful. One of the most notable new features in here is the ability to add live tone blend groups. So let's look at where we find these, what it is, and how we might make use of them, some things we might want to consider. So on screen now, I just have these 3 spheres. They're each on their own layer. I also have a bunch of backgrounds in here, so I can sort of cycle between the different backgrounds I have in here. So let's talk about how this works. If I go up here now under the pixel menu, and then I find live tone blend group and choose this, it's going to take that object and it's going to put it in a live tone blend group here. So if I expand this out, I can see here's the object that I had selected. So it's now within that group, and everything within that group, it's going to attempt to tonally blend that object based on color values and brightness values in the background. So we're picking up a lot of the orange color. It's fairly bright because that is what we have going on here in our background. Now, whenever you do this, you get this slider here. If I were to close this slider, I can still get that back at any time just by clicking on the group here, and it brings this tone blend slider back up. So with this slider here, you have a blend strength. So right now it's really blending pretty heavily, but I can dial it all the way back down to 0, and then I can bring it back up as desired. Blend color, this slider here, if you take this all the way down to 0, then it's no longer blending that background color. It is only using the brightness values, the luminance values. So if you just want to blend based on brightness, you can do that here, and then as you bring this up, it's going to start to bring in more and more of the color information. Now this low pass option at the bottom, if you start to drag this down lower and lower, it's going to start to let a little bit of the background sort of show through. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you sort of drag it over, we can see this flowers in the background. It's sort of now picking that up. So sometimes that's going to maybe look a little unnatural if the object isn't meant to be semi-transparent, but other times maybe it's just going to make it look like it's picking up some light reflections. So just another feature here, another slider you can play around with. On the bottom, we have this drop down where it's automatically going to make a selection based on the content type it thinks it is. These are just sort of presets. So we have images, shapes, and text. So you get a slightly different result. You're welcome to try these different options. By default, it's going to pick the one of these it thinks makes the most sense, but you can come in here and you can adjust that as needed. Now, the really cool thing about these blend groups is that obviously on the fly, as you drag something around, it's changing a bit based upon what's in the background. And also you can easily drag other objects into this group if you also want them to pick up these blend options. So if I just grab these other spheres here and then move them up into the group, then we can see all of these now are being affected on the fly by this tone blend group. So this is non-destructive editing, because at any point in time, I can take them out of the group. I can come in here, I can make adjustments on these sliders. So non-destructive editing. And on the fly, like I mentioned, it's making changes. So if I start to cycle through the different backgrounds, we can see how now these are changing depending upon what background we have behind them. So bring it down here, it's picking up more of this green, this color in the foreground. But if I bring them up to the sky, it's picking up more of that blue, more of the bright values. But again, very easily on the fly, if you just change different backgrounds, it's going to attempt to use these blend options just to make them fit a little bit more naturally into the scene. So a little bit more naturally on the fly, it's attempting to match these objects up with whatever scene we have. So here we see it's picking up the green here. It's picking up some of the different brightness values. So this is a really cool option. It's a good place to start sometimes if you're compositing an object into a new scene, but is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. It's not always going to make sense. I have this gentleman on another layer, so I could turn him on. I could drop him into the group. But something like this, the skin tones are being affected way too much, and you have to be careful with skin tones and things like this. So this is not always going to work perfectly. So I could look at other scenes as well behind him. And also, so it doesn't have a concept for depth in your scene. So you're going to have light bouncing around, but it's not always going to be a case where the direct color behind the person is what is going to be a blending. So this is where you just have to take control of this. So let's look at what we might do with something like this. So obviously I don't like it being applied to his face nearly as much. So I ideally would like to take some of this off his face. Now, if I just have it in this same blending group here, then any adjustments I make here by clicking on this is going to affect everything into the group. So let's say I like the way it was affecting those 3 spheres, but not him. then maybe I would like to take him out of this group. I could apply a live tone blend group to just him separately. So I could come up here again and do pixel, do another live tone blend group, and now I could come in here, and with him I could dial this down a whole bunch. Now the other thing I could do is I may want it to not affect his skin as much as it's affecting other parts of this image. So I could come in here, I could use some mask and some other things. Now one thing I don't love about this tone blend option is that it's being applied sort of at a group level. It's not being applied as an adjustment layer where I can just turn it off. So in other words, if I come in here and turn off the tone blend, I'm also just hiding everything in that group. So that's not really what I want. So what you might have to do sometimes is create a copy of your pixel layer, because right now it's just using everything behind him, and everything behind him is the mountain scene we have in the background. But if I were to take him here and make a copy of this layer, so I'll select that layer, do Control J, let me drag one of those outside of the group. So now we have the tone blend group, and then behind it we have him as well. So if I turn off that, we have another copy of him behind that, and that's what it's blending with now. So now I could come in the background and I could take this and use that background layer and sort of dial it up and down in opacity to sort of affect how much that's being brought in. I could also come in here and I could hide this with a mask. So let's come in here and let's mask this background layer here. So I'm just going to use that, drag this mask directly onto him now. And then on the mask layer, let's just make it black. So I've hidden that duplicate copy of him that we made. But if I want to start to paint this back in where his face is, because I don't want it to affect his face, then I can start to paint white on his mask here, just to sort of protect his skin tones. So let me come with the paintbrush tool. Let's make sure I have white as my color. Come up here, just the flow or opacity, however you need it. So let's bring that opacity up, and then we'll just go ahead and start to paint this in on his face. And so now we can see we're blocking this color blend of the mountain on his face, because behind him now we have this regular layer. Now the reason why I'm showing you this example is because I don't want you to get locked in on this tool and think it's always the right solution. There are times when you're using subjects with skin tones and it's just not going to work that well, or if you have an image with strong contrast and that's different from the scene you're putting it in, or it has a color cast, it's not always going to work. But if you do use this tool, I want you to know there are other ways you can come in here and manipulate it using all the other skills related to Affinity and all the other options that you do have. But this is a pretty cool option if you just have something simple. So if we have these objects right here, just the ability to on the fly have it adjust to different backgrounds, it is pretty cool. You move it around, it adjusts on the fly. So I do think this tool has some potential advantages. Just be aware, not always perfect. Now an update I think all Affinity users are going to like, but especially my Canva users, is you can now turn pixel selections instantly into vector artwork. Now let me show you what I mean, and then I'll tell you why I think Canva users especially are going to like this update. So we have this bird here, so anytime you have something and you're like, oh hey, I have this as an image, but maybe I want it to be some sort of vector artwork, maybe I want it to be the basis for a logo. Now you can turn any sort of pixel selection instantly into a vector curve. So let's just see how this works. So maybe I want to make a selection of this bird, so I could use any of my selection tools. I'll just grab the object selection tool here. We're going to hover over him here in the background, make sure I have that layer highlighted. So we'll go ahead, we'll find him as a selection, we'll load him as a selection, and now all you have to do, come up here under the vector menu. Now you have this convert to curves, or you can use that Control Return, Control Enter keyboard shortcut. Just like that, instantly it's going to convert that selection into a curve. So let me just go ahead and grab it here. And of course, this is a vector curve. So if I use my AT keyboard shortcut to get to this node tool here, now we can see that this is something that's still entirely editable as a vector. I can come in here with any one of these points. I can start to make modifications. I can update this however I need. So instantly convert something into vector. So this is very helpful, is a great way to get off to a quick start. Even if you need to make modifications, it's a great way to instantly convert it. Incorporate it into a logo or some other graphic, change the color to whatever you want, save it off for programs like Canva so you can incorporate it and work with it there. Lots of stuff you can do, so this is just a helpful feature. Now, the other reason why I think this update is going to be super useful and super exciting for Canva users is if you watch this channel, you know that you can use Affinity to make custom frames that you can then take back into Canva. So if you're a Canva user, you know what a frame is. It's a placeholder, a shape of a particular sort where you can drop in images. They have lots there, but you can create your own custom ones and just have more and more options. And that's a great use for a program like Affinity. But when you did this in the past, you had to take an image like this or a selection and you had to convert it to curves using this vector image trace option. And it was just kind of finicky. You would get some artifacts. It certainly worked, but now it's going to be even easier. So I could just come up here, grab any selection tool. Let me just grab out sort of a random interesting shape that maybe we wanted to use some cool shape like this for a frame. So just real quick, drag that out. Then now I can directly convert this into a curve by using that vector, convert to curves command, or that control enter keyboard shortcut. Boom, just like that, I have this curves layer. Then all you need to do is drop some sort of image in here. So I can grab this background image. Now don't drag it right on top, because if you do this and use it as a clipping mask, it's not going to work. What you want to do is put it over a little bit to the right and see where it says place inside. That's when you want to release it. You want it to still have the word curves here. If it looks like that, you should be good. Then you just need to come up here, go file, we're going to export, and we're going to export this as a PDF because that's what we're going to bring into Canva. That's what Canva is going to process as a frame. So these settings should all be good. So I'll just go ahead and click export here. I'll just save it in here. We'll just call this frame so we know how to find it here. And then here we are over in a project in Canva. So if I wanted to grab that frame, I would just come to my uploads here and I'm going to upload that file that we just saved off as frame. So here it is. I'll go ahead and open that. And then you could also, of course, save this off into any of your project folders you want. So I could take this here and I could come in here and I could go under this and we could move it. And if we can move it to something like favorite frames, just so we could always find it. It's just showing you it's always a good idea to organize your assets here. So here we go, favorite frames. I could put it in here, go ahead and move it in there. And then anytime I wanted to find it, I could go and find it there. So under your projects tab, when you're working in here, just come under your projects tab. Let's look for favorite frames, so folders, and let's look for favorite frames. And then of course I'll show you that this actually is a frame. So here inside of favorite frames, let's find that folder, favorite frames. Here's the one I just put in there. Click it to add it to your project. And if we right click, detach image, we can see yes, this was processed as a frame. So now if you go under elements, add any sort of picture in here, yes, this works as a frame. So this new ability now to be able to very quickly take any pixel selection and quickly convert it to curves. Then of course curves, a quicker method for this means even more quickly we can create Canva frames. So this new feature is very helpful. We also have a little bit of a brush tool update. Now recently on this channel I did a really deep dive into the paintbrush tool, all the settings, all the different ways you might use it, keyboard shortcuts. So if you want to check that out, I can link it up above and down in the description below. But there is a little update to talk about in these recent set of updates, and that's the ability to quickly access your brush tool settings. So if I'm here and I have the paintbrush tool and I'm just painting and I just want to really quickly bring up some of my brush tool settings, I just have to right click now with my mouse button, and with that right click it's going to bring up this menu right here. And from here we can come in here and we can change the shape of our brush. If it's a procedural round brush, we can rotate it around using this here. This is not a procedural round brush, so you notice that this one I cannot change the shape, but let me just show you real quick. If I come in here and bring up a different brush, so let me just go to brushes real quick, just bring up a simple round brush here. Same thing, I'll use that right mouse button to bring this up, and now we can see, yes, you can change the shape in here, you can change the rotation in here, you can change the blend mode in here, the size, opacity, hardness, flow, all these things, as well as quickly finding another brush. So this is maybe more helpful and quick as opposed to sometimes going over here and finding this brushes panel. Just really quick, you can right click with your right mouse button and bring all this up. So this might be helpful in a way to save time when you're using a brush tool here in Affinity. Another addition in the recent updates, they've added even more options here under the glitch filter. So if you've used this filter before, you know you can bring it up and you can come in here and start to apply different types of distortion to a photo. So come in here, I could add something like ripple, I could come in here and add something like waves. And so they've added a bunch of new options in here. I'm going to talk about one of these in a second, but if I wanted to apply this to not the whole image and just maybe the runner, maybe before I apply this, so let me just actually right click on this or click on this and delete this. And I'm first gonna just select my subject here. So let me just grab the object selection tool. We'll just hover over my subject here, wait until it comes up with a selection. So again, you can click the different parts or you can wait until you get the whole thing. You can hold down Alt or the Option key to get even more options here. Or if you click one, it's just going to continually to add to your selection when you click with the object selection tool. So there's my whole subject. I just might use Control J to put her up on a new layer. Now when I apply this glitch filter, I'm just going to be applying it to the runner itself and ignoring that yellow background. So now I would do the same thing. We're just come under here under filters. I'll choose glitch, and then I'll show you under here we have some new options. I'm not going to go over all of them, but one of the new options under here is this data blocks option. So what this data blocks option does is it comes in here, and as you start to drag out this block size, it starts to pixelate different areas. Now the larger you drag this, the higher those sort of pixel blocks are going to become, and then you can do horizontal displacement, you can do vertical displacement. So those are pretty self-explanatory. You also have block distribution in here you can play around with. You can play around with this color slider if you want, but very easily you can come in here and add some pretty cool effects. We'll take this horizontal displacement, we'll drag it up a decent bit. I'll fool around with this block distribution until I get something that looks interesting. And then the other thing you can do, of course, when you're applying any of these effects is you could have it affect just part of your image if you want to. So I might come in here with my pen tool, and I'm going to take a pen tool, and I don't really want this to block her face or anything. So I'm just going to do sort of a diagonal line right across her body there. Just come up here, and then of course I just want to turn this into a selection. So I'll just select that, and then if I come down right on my glitch filter, so let's scroll this open to the glitch filter, let's apply the mask directly to that glitch filter, and so then I can just drag that over my glitch, so it's just affecting the glitch. And so now we have that new data block glitch effect, and we're just applying it in a way I want. So be sure to check out the cool new options now part of this glitch filter. Affinity also made a small update with regard to their RAW engine. Now, if you're a content creator, you may not know what RAW really applies to, but if you're a photographer, you absolutely should be shooting RAW. So the difference between RAW and like a JPEG is something where it's been compressed, so you save on file size, the file size gets smaller, but it's throwing out a lot of information that might be helpful if you still wanted to make exposure adjustments or other adjustments, white balance adjustments. So there's extra information in a RAW file when you take a picture in camera, and then that gets compressed and thrown away when you convert to JPEG. So if I were to just come, and here's a photo where I've already done the post-processing, but if I was going to come in here and open this original photo, so file open, I have two different versions in here because when I was shooting this particular picture here, I took both the JPEG and RAW files. So here's the JPEG written to my camera, and then this is the RAW file. So if I just open the JPEG version here, it just opens up directly in Affinity right here. But if I open the same photo, but the RAW version of that, and so that's going to be this one here is in the RAW format. So if I open this now, we'll see it opens up in the develop module. So in this develop module here, here's what it's looked like. You get all this stuff on the side here. You can see right here, it says RAW. Now you can open a JPEG up in RAW mode. So if I come back to this JPEG, it's not going to open in RAW mode, but RAW mode means you come into this develop module. So I could go into develop module here and I could start to drag these sliders. But if I drag these sliders on a JPEG, it's more likely to degrade the photo and not work properly because I just don't have as much information here to work with because I've compressed the file already when I turned it into a JPEG. If you're working on the RAW file, which I am here, then suddenly there is more information that exists in here. I haven't compressed anything yet, so I can come in here, I can fool around with these sliders, I can make more adjustments, I can come in here, I can pump up the vibrance, I can do other things where I just have a greater range of freedom. Now the update I wanted to mention with regards to this RAW engine, this develop module, is right here under the tone curve. Now under the tone curve, you have more sort of default presets right under here. So you can choose compressed, you can choose natural. If you have a high contrast image, you can choose this option. And then there's also a log option under here. So these are just the sort of presets you can try out. Maybe one looks better than the other, or also maybe you know the starting point you like to have based on the types of edits you need to do. This isn't a final version. This just gives you a starting point. You can still play around with the sliders, make as many adjustments you want here. Obviously, then when you're done in here, you can go ahead and click develop. It's going to jump back into Affinity. You've applied those changes here. But anytime with a RAW photo that you want to get back in, you can just double click and you'll be back in this develop module. Cancel things if you don't want to do your changes. If you do want to apply changes, go ahead and hit develop, and then you're back in regular Affinity. So these are just some updates, and they also added support for some new camera models. When new camera models come on the market, sometimes they have RAW formats that are slightly different, so they might not be immediately supported, but pretty quickly programs like Affinity try to add those new models and formats so you have support for working with your RAW files in this develop module. Affinity has also made some pen tool improvements. So now when you're drawing out with the pen tool, you can draw out. And if you ever want to stop your curve, you can just hit P to stop the current curve. Now you used to be able to do that with the escape key, but now you can do it with that P key. I could click on this point if I wanted to keep going again. And also as you're drawing out here, if you wanted to take any of your node points on the fly with the pen tool and change whether it's a curve point or a sharp point, I could use the Alt keyboard shortcut. That's on Windows. This would be optional on Mac. I could click right on the point and it's going to convert it to a sharp point. And then of course, if I Alt click and hold and drag out, then I can bring that back to a curved point. So a lot of these things you could do before if you were to tap A to switch over to the node tool over here. So I think the big change here with the pen tool is some of these things now you can do naturally right within the pen tool, and you don't even have to switch over to that node tool. So useful improvements. But if you still need help with the pen tool, I have a really in-depth tutorial on this channel, so I can link it up above. It's really helpful to learn this because this is a really useful tool in Affinity. Now, I covered a lot of what I consider to be the most important updates in this Affinity March 26 release, but if you want to see the release notes, anything I may have missed, I will link that page down below, and you can go check out everything that was part of this March release. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. I'd be curious to know down in the comments below, what new feature are you most excited about? And if you like Affinity updates like this and you want to stay updated on all things Affinity, you can subscribe to this channel. And down below in the first pinned comment, I'll also leave a place where you can sign up for my newsletter, where I send out lots of updates related to Affinity in Canva. Thanks again for watching. See you soon.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.